Hello and welcome to How to Write a Business Case for Almost Anything. Now before we start, I want to share with you one of my favourite quotes, and it goes like this. The wealthiest place in the world is not the gold mines of South America or the oil fields of Iraq or Iran. They are not the diamond mines of South Africa or the banks of the world. The wealthiest place on the planet is just down the road. It is the cemetery. There lie buried companies that were never started, inventions that were never made, best-selling books that were never written, and masterpieces that were never painted. In the cemetery is buried the greatest treasure of untapped potential. Do you want to be the richest person in the cemetery? At some point in our lives, we all come across those brilliant ideas, the idea that could change the world. But not many of us get the opportunity to put them into action. So what is stopping us? And this is my suggestion. It's getting it from here to paper or the computer. It's actually getting the thoughts and the ideas into a script. Once you've got something tangible, then that's the first place you can start to make things happen. You have a vision, you have a dream. It's not stuck in your head anymore. There is something out in the open and you just have got to act on it. My name is Pat Gross and I help clients to bring in millions of dollars a year in grant funding. And what I really enjoy about this is taking an idea that they come to me with and say, look, we want to do this. They may already have a grant stream in mind, or part of the process is us helping them to find a grant opportunity. But what I really, really enjoy is taking that idea and creating the plan. And once the plan gets funded, then it becomes action. And to see the change that these ideas have made, it doesn't matter if it's a business or if it's a community project. At some point, these were ideas in people's minds. But I can tell you that every application has to be a well-crafted business case. But a business case isn't just about getting access to money. It's the first step in realizing your destiny. And it's not the graveyard or cemetery. We realized that there is such a huge potential out there and people just do not know where to start. So what we did is we put together the Get That Grant project planning app. Now do not be fooled or misguided. It is not just about a plan to put together an application for a grant. In fact, I was doing a workshop a couple of weeks ago and one of my colleagues said, oh, we can use this for anything. And I went, yes, because it's all about a business case. That's what a grant application is. But it's taken the concept of a business case that you can use to go for a loan. It can actually be something you can sit down and work through whether this idea is going to work or not. This is what a business case is. It helps you to come to a decision to see whether or not there's a potential for your idea to become viable. It's the first thing you do. So I will repeat this at the end of the workshop, but you can go to getthatgrant.com or to the app stores or to click your phone here on the QR codes and access this project planning app for free. There's no commitment, there's no financials involved here. This is actually freely available, and when you put together your plan, you can save it. It's in your own space, so you can save it. You can print it, you can share it with other people, send it to other people. It's freely available for you to use. To get most out of this session, what I want you to do is to come up with an idea. an idea, something that's burning in your mind, in your head, that you really would like to see this happen. And look, it could be holding an event. It could be, I keep thinking of a night out party or something. It can be, it can be something that's going to be there to change the world. I don't care. Just make sure that you've got an idea that you want to investigate. Okay, so the first thing we need to consider is why. Why do you want to do this? There must be something. There's a purpose here. It creates the fire, so that if you've got the fire and the passion, you know what it is, you've unpacked it, it's going to help you then to carry on and not get bored halfway through doing what you need to do, and then the whole thing falls apart. So you need to start at the very beginning and look at, well, what is the current situation? What's going on out there that makes you want to create this change? And what's going on out there may be impacting, if you're in a business or in a community organization. Obviously it may be affecting your organization. If it's a community, what's going on out there that's really having an effect in the community. Good example I can think of recently in Australia is the impacts of bushfires and floods. And what's the impact of that is being mental health, people not being able to get back on their feet again. There may be barriers. So there's already a sort of a situation happening there. And that, of course, it's, if you're in business, what's going on in the marketplace. Is there a gap in the marketplace that you've identified? Is there this, maybe the marketplace is flooded and you need to look for something different. So what's going on outside is really sort of like the benchmark. Looking at what needs to change. And when the change happens, what will that look like? Now be very, very clear about that. This is an important factor. If you can visualize what you want to see the end result of the change that you're going to bring in here, and you can use your senses, not just say, this is what's going to look like. Bring your senses into it as well. Because as you do that, your whole being becomes involved and not just your head. And then consider, well, what if we don't change the situation? That is just as powerful when it comes to justifying why you want to do this. Let me give you a couple of examples here. First of all, there is a community festival. You're living in a metropolitan area where there's been a recent influx of new migrants, not necessarily refugees. There may be employment growth in your area, and you're bringing in migrants from lots of countries, and there may be it's a new area for them. There isn't that local places for them to go. There isn't enough in each community, overseas community, to actually create community within community. Or there could be the fact that there just seems to be they're not cohesive enough, and there's just some gaps between the different cultures, and also between their cultures and the Australian culture. So your idea is, we really need to have a festival so that people can understand each other and at the same time celebrate each other's cultures, get to know how we work, and it's a great activity. So that's if you go through those questions, and for instance you sort of think, well, what if we don't do this festival? Then as you know, that it might be a situation that this thing carries on, and you might find that people decide they don't want to settle here and they want to move to somewhere else where there are bigger communities. But as an impact of that, you're going to have an employment situation where there's too many jobs and nobody to fill them. There's different. I'm just giving you a quick a sort of summary there. It could be that if you don't do it, maybe there's a youth problem because they're not settling, and they really need to get involved and have a voice. So there may be some problems, some problems there. So it's sort of like thinking about, well, okay, there's a reason for doing it, and what happens if we don't do it? Another example there is actually opening up a new business. And again, you'd be looking at the current situation, what's going on out there. You probably think you found a gap in the market. Go out and do some research. Find out, if there is a gap, what the market potential is. All that research that you should be doing anyway. Well, this is part of your business case. It's the same actually when I go back to the community festival, is you don't just assume that these people are there, you actually go and find out, look at recent demographic information from local government, go and talk to a few people, engage, whether you're a business or whether you're a community event, engage with the people that you're trying to work with or your marketplace. So when it comes to business, like the idea of what's our idea, what's the need for this, what's the gap in the market, anybody else doing this, what happens if we don't do it. They're the same questions but in a different context. Okay, we've talked about why. Now we're going to consider what, where and when. Now, before we go into the what in detail, we need to be looking at where. If you're going to be organising a party, for example, you'll probably be looking at the location and when. And they're the limiting factors, being able to find a place that's available, where it's available and when it's available at the same time. It doesn't matter what you're doing, there's going to be that sort of where and when approach to it. The what, now that's interesting because it's what is the project, what are we going to do? So if you're putting something out to paper, you will need to do a quick summary, a description of what you want to do. Extend it to the why and put in the evidence as to justifying the why. Then we're talking about what is the project. And this is where you start to really map out, step by step, what you're going to do. Now, the reason I've listed the post-it notes is simple. If you do nothing else, just have a brainstorm session. Break it down, what you want to do, into stages. And then underneath those stages, you'll put activities. And as you do that, you'll end up with something like the following slide. Here we go. In project management terms, it's called a work breakdown structure. But what I have done here is setting up a community garden. And I've said there are 5 major areas that we need to work on. There's the actual, how we're going to manage the project. There's the construction and design phase. Is how we're going to use it, the community garden, how we're going to manage the community garden, and how it's going to be sustainable in the future. And then underneath that, we've sort of added some subheadings that need to be considered in the plan. And what you would do with that as a starting point, we're not going to go into detail here, is that you would actually, for each of those areas, those tags, you would look at, well, how long would it take to do this? And who could we allocate? Who needs to be involved? So what we're looking here is time and people. Talking about people, what we also need to be able to be mindful of is who will benefit from the project. Who are you targeting? And then the second part of that who question is, who do we want to be involved? Here I'm talking about if you're being strategic, other stakeholders. If this is one of those ideas that you have out there, it could be that you've got this great big idea and you need to get it, influence people with it. So you might be looking out there and going, well, we might need some politicians to be involved here. We might need some business leaders to be involved here. We might need local government to be involved. I'm trying to say here, or it could be some partners. What I'm trying to say is consider at this point, in order for your idea to be successful, who else needs to be involved? Which brings us to resources. This is about how we will manage this project, this idea. For instance, who's going to be the overall manager of it? Is it going to be you? Or do you think you need a team of people? Do you need people out there who have got some networks or financial acumen, technical expertise? You're looking at, what do I need here to help me to surround myself with to be able to make this idea a success? Then you've got the people power. So what's the skills and the expertise that's needed? And it could be, for instance, who can we get to volunteer? It could be as simple as that. The next area is your physical resources. What do we need to give the idea of having a party? You're going to need a venue. So obviously there's going to be a cost to that, but you need a venue. But what kind of venue? How many people will it hold? That's just an idea. It could be that you're going to a building, you're going to extend a building, so of course what physical resources are needed there? That's the infrastructure resources. And of course financial. How much is this going to cost? How are we going to finance this? Can some of this be done by us for nothing? Or are we going to need to get in a loan, or do we need a grant? So it's things like that we need to consider. And finally, under the how, is how we will ensure success. Now there's two things there. One thing is to actually look at, well, what risks are we taking? Or what could go wrong if and really have an impact if we don't get it right? And if we think about that, we're thinking about, well, what can we do now to mitigate that? Or if it were to happen, what could we do? And then, of course, finally, ensuring success is you need to know what your success factors are. So, how do you measure that from where you were at the beginning, what needs to change, what needs to happen, to right at the end, and how well did we do? Was it successful? Simple, really. What we've done is gone through a process of who, what, where, why, when and how. Yeah, but if it were that simple, would everybody be doing it every day of the year? But so as what we've done, as I mentioned earlier, is put together a template for you to go through to turn those thoughts and ideas into action, to create a business case, to think about your plan of action. It can be saved, shared and printed, and it's going to make your mark on the world. All you have to do is to go to getthatgrant.com or to the app stores, or just use the QR code here. And if you're not confident about what you're doing, just draft your plan and contact us to discuss the next step. Just go to bit.ly/TCE booking.